Alright guys, now we're going to be solving by the quadratic formula. So remember here, x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So step 1, identify a, b, and c. So you have 3, 4, negative 8. Step 2, plug it in. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 96 over 6. So you get x equals negative 4 plus or minus square root of 112 over 6. So now it said the round to the nearest hundredth, so we can just enter this in. So enter negative 4 minus the square root of 112 divided by 6, and you should have gotten x equals negative 2.43. Then you do negative 4 plus the square root of 112 divided by 6, and you should have gotten 1.10. Okay? Let's take a look at some more. So instead of the hundredth, this time they want the exact value. So here a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 4. So you would have x equals negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So you get x equals 4 plus or minus 16 minus 64 over 2. Oh wait, hold on. That's not 16. Whoop, that's a 4. Bad mistake, Mr. McCaw. So it's 16 minus 16. So you have 4 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2, which would just be 4 over 2, which is 2. So there we go. Let's take a look at some more. So from now on, we're going to do exact answers, okay? So here's the thing. You have to get it equal to 0 before you use the quadratic formula. So we have to say 5m squared plus m minus 1 equals 0. So now we have 5, 1, negative 1. Okay? So after we look at those, now we have to use the quadratic formula. So you have x equals negative 1 plus or minus 1 squared minus 4 times 5 times negative 1 all over 2 times 5. So you get that equals negative 1 plus or minus square root of 1 plus 20 over 10. So you get negative 1 plus or minus square root of 21 over 10, which that would be negative 1/10 plus or minus square root of 21 over 10. I can't simplify anything, so we're done. So let's take a look at another one. Now see, to me, I would never, ever, ever recommend solving a quadratic formula like this one. So watch, we're going to do it a way where this is review. Add the 96. Square root. So you get z equals plus or minus square root of 96. And what you have to remember how to do is just try to simplify that square root, which I can say z equals plus or minus square root of 16 and 6, because 16 times 6 is 96, So z equals plus or minus 4 square root 6. Okay? Let's take a look at some more. Alright, so let's talk about some things here. It says discriminant values. Okay, so what's the discriminant? The discriminant is the value of b squared minus 4 times a times c. So if you calculate the b squared minus 4ac and you get a perfect square, so example, it's 16, because that's a perfect square. It means you're going to have two distinct rational numbers. Okay? If you have a positive non-perfect square, so 18, you're going to have two distinct irrational numbers. If the b squared minus 4ac is 0, that means you have one repeated rational number. So technically it's there twice, but you only count it once. Okay? And then it says if you have a negative number, okay, so like even if we did negative 4, okay, that's two distinct complex numbers, meaning, remember, because square root of negative 4 would be 2i, remember the imaginary numbers, okay? So all they're wanting you to do here, it says, given the quadratic equation, determine the type of the solution, okay? So just calculate the b squared minus 4ac. So you have 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. So you have 1 minus 4, negative 3, so you have two complex numbers. Or you could say, or 0 real, in case there is another option. Because if you have two complex, it means there's no real numbers. Okay? So here, you have b squared minus 4 times a times c. So you get 16 minus 16 is 0, so that means you have one real number. Or let's see, did they want rational? Yeah, one repeated rational number. Okay? So, one repeated rational number. Okay, let's take a look at some more. Alright, so here, guys, we're going to be given the solutions. You need to write the quadratic equation. Okay? So, what we need to do here is start, you say x equaled negative 2 and x equaled 3. So this would be x plus 2 equaled 0, x minus 3 equaled 0. Okay? Now remember factoring, what we used to do is this. We'd say, remember, it looked like this, and then you'd go backwards. Okay? So here now you'd say, distribute out, so you have x squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6 equals 0, so you have x squared minus x minus 6. So there is your function. Let's take a look at some more. Alright, so word problems, everyone's favorite. So it says a stone is thrown upward from a fire tower that is 50 feet tall. The initial velocity of the stone is 40 feet per second. The pathway of the stone is modeled by the equation h equals negative 16t squared. That negative 16 is representing gravity. This is the initial velocity. This is the initial height. Okay? Where h is the height in stone and feet, and t is the time in seconds after leaving its hand. At what time is the stone 50 feet from the ground? Well, and then at what time is the stone on the ground? So, first thing we want to do, we know it starts, so t is 0, but we say 50 equals negative 16t squared plus 40t plus 50. Now, get it equal to 0, so subtract the 50. You get 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 40t. Okay? So now all we got to do is factor. So I'm going to factor out the negative 4t. And I'm going to have 4, oh, could have done more. I'm going to have 4t, oh, not plus, minus now because I factored out the negative. Positive 4t minus 10. We could have factored out more, but it doesn't matter. So if it set each factor equal to 0, yeah, I should have used 8, but add the 10, divide by 4, so you get t equals 10/4, which is 2.5 seconds. Or t equals 0 seconds, because didn't it start at the 50 feet? Now for the next one, they want to know when it hits the ground. Well, what's the height of the ground? Well, 0. So you have 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 40t plus 50. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 2 because I want to make the 1 they're all even and 2 I want to make my a positive value. So after we divide everything by 2, you're going to get 0 equals 8t squared minus 20t minus 25. And then I would just say t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So t equals 20 plus or minus the square root of 1200 over 16. And obviously you're not going to have a negative time, so only one of these will work. So 20 plus the square root of 1200 divided by 16. So you get, it took 3.42 seconds. Okay? So there we go. Let's take a look at another. Alright, it says a rectangle has a width of x inches and a length of x plus 6.3 and an area of 58.14 square inches. Okay, so how do you find the area of a rectangle? You do length times the width. It equaled this. Distribute. And subtract it over. So we get it equal to 0. Now you just got to use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative 6.3 plus or minus the square root of 6.3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 58.14 all divided by 2 times 1. So just get the calculator out, plug it in, and chug it out. So if you did that, you should have gotten x equals 5.1 inches. Okay, so we know that the width is 5.1, and then the length is going to be 5.1 plus 6.3, so 11.4. Let's take a look at another problem. Oh, wait. Inches. Don't forget the label. Okay? It says the depth d in feet of a river is given by d equals this, where 0 to t to 7. So the time is between 0 and 7 hours of heavy rain. When is the river 6 feet deep? Okay, so 6 equals negative 0.25 t squared plus 1.7 t plus 3.5. So get it equal to 0. So you would get 0 equals negative 0.25 t squared plus 1.7 t. Should be negative 2.5. Okay. And again, just use the quadratic formula or plug in your calculator graph and find it. So go ahead and do that. If you did, you should have gotten t equals 1.50 hours. Okay? Let's take a look at another one. This is just the same thing. Plug in the 10. Sorry about that. Get it equal to 0, use the quadratic formula and solve. Okay? So if you did that, you should have gotten about 401 feet. Okay? Alright, see you guys in class.